to my mind as I'm sitting here is that I've been in this position before where I've spoken to people about Zen Buddhism or Sun Buddhism. And every time I have the same feeling inside, which is that I'm not qualified to be sitting here talking to you about anything, let alone Zen Buddhism. Even though I became a monk in 1998, when I was actually relatively young. All of these years later, it's been about 15 years, and still, every day, I feel like I'm still discovering what this practice is all about, or what this life is all about. And I'm not saying that just to sound humble. It's really true. Yeah. And maybe that, in a way, maybe that is at the heart and why I've been able to stick with this practice for so long. When I examine my personality, I think, wow, I'm a bit, I've always thought of myself as someone who wanted to, never be tied down. I've always been seeking freedom. And so when I look back at my life and realize that I've made this commitment and have followed through with something for so many years, it seems almost impossible. But I think that is what is so, for me at least, so rich and so worthwhile about the study of Zen or the study of Sun and Buddhism, is that it can just go, it goes deeper and deeper. And maybe that's why after 15 years I'm left feeling like I really don't know, or I have some sort of insecurity about my ability to express anything worthwhile to you. It's like, maybe it's a bit like art, right? An artist never stops. And definitely it's the same thing with the study of our mind. We have the concept in Buddhism of awakening or enlightenment, which can give the impression of some kind of fixated state. But my teacher brought me to one of his teachers, who, when I met him the first time, was around 96 and had been a monk for 85 years at that point. And I don't know, is he awakened? He's actually still alive. And is he awakened? Is he enlightened? I'm not sure. All I know is that when I walked in the room with him, I was changed by his very presence. And my definition when I think about him is, yeah, he is a great Buddha. And every time he gave a Dharma talk, he really expressed to us, students, that this study as a monk or as a human being, forget monk or layperson, this study never ends. And if you think you've accomplished something, then you're setting yourself up for a problem, right? And I think that's where Zen really does fit into, the title of this talk is How to Practice Zen in Modern Times. That same principle holds true for us whether we're monks or not monks, whether we study Buddhism formally or informally, or even if we've never heard of Buddhism. It's about the quality of the way that you conduct yourself. And if we have this concept in our minds of fixation, in other words, we think that we've done enough, or we think that we say we know something really well, we become an expert. Or we go into a meeting with someone or a relationship and we have a very fixated idea about what we want or what we need, what's going to happen, what should happen, what I want from this person, even if it's really subtle. If you really examine your life, at least I know for me when I examine my life, the way that we operate usually is we're looking out for ourselves, right? Basically, from the time we wake up until the time we go to bed at night, there's nothing on our mind that doesn't involve us. And that's not a sin. Like, we're not a monotheistic philosophy or religion in Buddhism. So we don't judge that and say, well, wow, we're really naughty people and we should be punished. But what we do say is very practically, when human beings live like that, they bring themselves difficulties. And the powerful teaching that the Buddha gave more than 2,500 years ago was that the root of all of our problems, all of our dissatisfaction, it's translated into English as suffering, but I think that's a really bad translation. It actually is dukkha, and I think it's more like it's not quite right. There's just always something eating at you, right? Something's always not quite right. It's a kind of basic state of dissatisfaction that comes and goes, right? Depending on, whether you have a new fascinating lover, or you get a promotion at your job, or you give birth to a beautiful son or daughter, then, it ebbs and flows. But basically, when things settle down, we're left always wanting more. It's never enough, right? It's like you eat a meal, and then 3 hours later, what happens? You're hungry again. That's the basic state of the human mind, or the human experience. So that was the Buddha's teaching, that life is essentially dissatisfying. Why? Have we done something wrong? Did we murder someone in a past life and wind up in this state? No, that wasn't his teaching. Basically, what the Buddha said about that was that the cause of our difficulties, every difficulty, is that we're wrapped up with ourselves. We have a desire for more. We cannot be satisfied with what we have. And that is materially, psychologically, socially, spiritually, everything. That human beings are basically like animals with a consciousness. And we go around looking for more. We want to be more beautiful. We want to be more healthy. Even those are good things. There's nothing wrong with those things. Of course we want to feel good. Everybody does. There's no sin. But the problem is that craving mind, that mind that can't just be settled and pure. In many ways, if you look at children, somehow just, through their, in a sense, they've come from the light so soon. They literally came out of the light. And so they're very close to that pure state of existence, of no thinking, right? So when we look at them, that's why they have some level of freedom. But that changes. They also have their own karma. It's like a seed that grows and blooms. Everyone is born with their karma. So the children, very quickly, we were children too. Do you remember being a child? Playing in the playground with your friends? Not a care in the world? Everything was okay. If you got angry, 5 minutes later you forgot about it. Right? What happened? What happened to that state of mind? So according to Buddhism, or according to truth, I don't think it's not just owned by Buddhism, that at the core of our difficulty is that we're always wanting more. And that habit creates a situation in our mind where we literally never stop thinking. And then when we get to be 30 or 40, we can't even sleep at night because the thoughts just run around in our head. And then if you ask people about that, they justify it. Oh, well, I've got to keep my job, don't I? I have to preserve my marriage, don't I? I have to make sure that there's food on the table. That's a great expression. But the truth is, do you think any of those things are going to matter when you get to the end of the road? And you're literally going to face the end of your life? That's a really, really great question to ask yourself when you're wondering what to do next. Right? Put it in that kind of perspective. We're always kind of looking at life in terms of a short-term perspective. Right? Well, this will make me happy for a week or for a month, right? Especially in the West, where I was born and raised. And I'm going back to next week with definitely mixed feelings. It's about short-term gain, right? It's about money. So the Buddhist perspective is a very, very broad and wide perspective. That's why Mahayana Buddhism is called the large vehicle or the large boat. We have to change, deepen the way that we look at our lives, that we look at ourselves. And essentially that's the study of Buddhism, that's the study of Zen. It's an art form, it's a lifetime. It's not something that you learn at a workshop or a weekend, right? In the United States, if you pick up these Buddhist magazines, they'll have these workshops advertised. I'm not kidding. If you come and you pay me $2,000, you can awaken in a weekend. It's popular Buddhism, right? Materialistic Buddhism. That's what the West does, right? We're very good at turning things, even things like Buddhism, into a marketing venture, right? So the noble truths of Buddhism, the first one, that there's this basic dissatisfaction, and that the root of that dissatisfaction is within us, not outside of us, within our mind, the craving mind. So that's a bit depressing. If Buddhism were to cut it off at those two noble truths, then I think we'd walk away from it going, well, what? Let's. That's I think where Franz Kafka got mixed up, right? He stopped there. That whole existentialist line of thinking is quite fascinating, but quite depressing. So the great wisdom of Buddhism, I think, lies in the final two truths. The third, that there is a way out of this dilemma. That's about it for the third one. So, okay. And then the fourth one is what, in very specific terms, is called the Eightfold Path. But maybe in more modern terms, what we could say is self-examination, self-study, the study of our own mind and how it works, how we were born, why we were born, what we're doing in this life, why we behave the way that we behave. And the interesting thing about Buddhist study is it doesn't give you answers. The very clear teaching within Buddhism is that you possess the answer, no one else. If you put your hopes and dreams in another person, well, if you marry that person, you wind up divorcing or living together miserably for the next, number of years. If you put your hopes and dreams and faith in a teacher, they can guide you. Because the idea is that a true spiritual teacher doesn't want or need anything from you. That the only thing that they want and do need from you is for you to become awakened. That's why the student-teacher relationship has been so sacred and so successful for thousands of years. And that is the essence, actually, of Buddhism. It's not about learning something. It's about making a relationship with your own mind. And it's been said, a lot of people, especially Americans, I'm not sure about other Western countries, but a lot of Americans don't like to hear the next part. You need a teacher. People try to do it on their own, and some people can be successful. But, out of 1 million people, if 5 people have the capacity to do it on their own, if you tell that to a room full of 1 million Americans, every one of them will think, I can be that person. But, if you have that kind of mind, you really need a teacher. It's the person that doesn't want a teacher that actually needs one. Right? That's why I have a teacher, and I've had a teacher for 15 years. And I've been basically his apprentice. I've been right next to his hip. Other than, going to study, in a different location. But for the first 10 years, he kept me right there. And I hated it. It was horrible. He saw everything. But I'm really grateful that someone had the patience and the love to care about me that much. I was a headache. I had so many ideas about what it meant to be alive and what I wanted, and sometimes I would even question his wisdom and, why would you say that to me? But the truth is, he brought me right in. And because he didn't need anything from me, he was able to be honest with me. When the honesty hurt me, and even hurt him, to have to say to me, you're a very selfish person. And then I would hear that, so what? How can you say that to me? That's so painful. Yeah, but it's true. Didn't you say to me that you wanted to wake up and become real? Yes, Sunim, I did say that to you. Okay, well, you're going to have to hear this and then process it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've got you misjudged and you're a wise person. And then I said, no, definitely that's not true. Okay, well, there's no sin. You're not going to go to hell. But it's just a very practical question. Do you want to behave and think and act and live as a selfish person? Is that going to bring you happiness? And my true answer to that was, no, it doesn't work. But I don't know how to stop. And then he would say to me, that's why I've taught you meditation. Go back to the mat. Go put more hours in. Go chant. Go for a walk. Work. Go do some carpentry. I taught you carpentry. I taught you cooking. He taught me many things. And always he would point me back to do something for others. It's kind of like, I think I said this to you last week. He always taught me, fake it until you make it, And at first I rejected that teaching, like, oh, that's so not authentic. I don't want to do that. But then he would say, if you want to become a true person, start by acting like one. At least then, you don't cause other people trouble. Right? That's why we have rules in religious study. Not because rules themselves are great. There's nothing special about rules. But until you sort of have the wisdom to know how to live your life, these rules are set up so that at the very least, you don't bring harm to others. That's actually the first Buddhist precept. Do not harm, but cherish all life. What does that mean? It's so broad, right? The great masters actually say that even filters down to your every thought. That a true master is one whose every thought revolves around that teaching of not bringing harm, but actually lifting up all beings. That was why people loved the Buddha, and why almost 2,500 or 2,600 years later, we still talk about him and teach his way. Why? Because he loved everything. He had literally turned himself in to something that was beyond human. And I don't mean like a creature or some kind of an alien, but literally his energy became about helping others. It's profound. It's really, really profound. So this is the path. And it's very difficult. That's why another difficulty for me coming in front of all of you is that I know intimately, deeply in my heart, how hard it was for me to make any kind of progress in this study. It was 1 inch at a time. Just like life, like everyone's life. It's no different because I'm a monk. Just to go 1 inch forward, felt like I was pushing against a huge mountain. And so it feels really arrogant, to come in front of you and talk to you about Zen, like it's some sort of interesting academic study of the week or something. No, it's about your life. It's really, how can I say, it's not for the weak-hearted. And I would actually say to you that, you can explore Zen, as you wish. But if you're actually interested in taking up this study, you should be really careful. And you should be really, how can I say, ready to commit. It's not something to play around with. If you want to play around with something, take some yoga classes, or take up, there are different types of Buddhist study that you can do that have less expectation, which is fine. Everyone is in their own place. You don't have to, have this deep spiritual desire for awakening, but that's who Zen is for. And that's why, in a way, these days especially, it doesn't appeal to the masses. Right? If a Zen center, or, I hate to say this, maybe it's not quite true, but if Zen is appealing to the masses, you might have to take a second look at where that's happening. Because in my teacher's case, he's great. I've watched how he's lived for 15 years. Yeah, he's not perfect. Who is? But he's an authentic human. And he lives for others. And he has maybe 5 close students. Right? Because people just don't want to hear the truth. You give them a little bit of truth and they run away. It's too much. Right? But I think that meditation, on the other hand, is something that can appeal to the masses. Buddhism is something that can appeal to the masses. It's sort of preparatory for the intense self-examination that is Zen. Zen is not, something that we should take up lightly. And I'm sorry to come and say that to you. I don't mean to discourage you. I really want to encourage you that it can transform your life. It can turn you into the Buddha that you already are. But you have to find a teacher. That's my suggestion. And then you have to really commit to carving out some space in your schedule regularly, and then move forward one step at a time. You don't have to become a monk. You don't have to give up your family or your job, but it's something that you have to invest in fully if it's going to take you anywhere. On the other hand, if that's not something that you're ready to do, then, take a look around. Try Buddhist study, read sutras. Come and meditate with other people. It's great, It's actually can make you feel better and lower your blood pressure and help you become healthy and happy, and maybe eventually get you to a point where you can feel strong enough or confident enough to take up what we would say to be true Zen study, right? I got into Zen early because I was so desperate. There was no other way for me. I had everything on the outside, but inside I was lost, and I knew it. And I had the fortune, only through this fortune, of meeting my teacher when I was young. He put this, you could say our first meeting, I was 17, the seed was planted. That was it. If I wouldn't have met him, I don't know if I would have become a monk. I probably would have just followed my karma and then come to a talk when I was in my 40s, about Zen. Sounds good, I'll go check it out. But I met him, and I couldn't ignore his face. He had quite a face and quite a way, and he seemed free. And I thought, wow, I want to be like this guy. So I followed him home, literally, like a puppy. I figured out, where he lived and where his small Zen center was. He had only come back from Korea a few years before. He's an American, but he trained here for a long time, and with a Korean monk for a long time. He had a very, very intense apprenticeship himself. So I literally followed him home to his little Zen center, where he had a meditation hall in the basement of a house. But to me, it was like the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. It didn't matter. It was in a poor neighborhood. It was musty, because it was the basement, and there were just a few people coming around. But to me, it was like, wow, I've come to heaven. This is great. So that's what life is like. We know when something is right. Right? It's like when you meet that person that you fall in love with. You know it's right. You can't deny it. Even if your logic says, no, no, no. People have given up kingdoms because they fell in love. Where does that come from? That's your power. And Buddhism is simply saying that there's nothing wrong with that kind of power. The love power, you could say, or the infatuation power, or the power, the desire for money. That same power that makes someone become like Michael Jordan, right? So amazing, right? Physically. Just Buddhism, you could say, comes along and says to you, those things are great, but they're limited, right? But spiritual power is unlimited. No limit. That's why it's so pure. Because there's none of this, it's like the person who becomes famous on stage, right? Beautiful singer. And what do they say in their memoir? I was so depressed. They become alcoholics. Because that power is limited. It's a human power. Spiritual power is beyond human, beyond animal. You could say it's our next step. Whatever comes after humanness. Maybe you could say a total human, a real human, who brings all of their sort of, crazy thoughts and feelings, all of these sort of fragments of their personalities together into one unified person. That's a Buddha. So that's why Buddhism is so profound. Because it doesn't deny the other aspects of life. It doesn't say to you, you shouldn't fall in love. It says, like I one time saw an interview, someone sent me a little video clip of the Dalai Lama talking to one of his disciples who had decided to not be a monk anymore because they fell in love and they were so ashamed. And the Dalai Lama was really funny, he said, no, it's great. You should celebrate, because if you live as a monk, but you still have this question, then you're just going to extend your suffering. You should run into it, throw yourself into it, and be happy. Try to be happy. Try to make that person happy. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So that's, I think, what's so great about Buddhism. And again, I hope I'm not sounding like a proselytizer here. I hate being, in the subway, the evangelical Christians, you should love Jesus, I do, I love Jesus. But Buddhist monks, we should be different than that. But I do love Buddhism because, it has this non-denial aspect. You want to be Christian? Be Christian. You want to be an atheist? Be an atheist. You want to fall in love? Go for it. But do it fully. That's the teaching of Buddhism. Whatever you do it fully. No shame, no fear, no anxiety. And if you want to get rid of those things, it's got a handful of practices for you. Chanting practice, sitting practice, walking practice. You don't need a temple, you don't need a Buddha, you don't even need a teacher for those things. But you do need to learn how to simply do them purely. And that's where a teacher comes in handy. They can teach you a method. Method is really important. Without method we can't really learn. I don't know what we can learn. The method is really why we have mothers and fathers and teachers. They literally show us how to put our clothes on, right? How to speak. Some things we can intuitively learn, but how to sort of find our way in the world. That's what our parents do, and then our friends, and then hopefully, our spiritual teachers would do the same thing. But you should be cautious. There are a lot of people going around as teachers, especially in Korea, and sometimes I meet them and go, wow, I think you need a teacher. And so that's a very judgmental thing to say, but I think when it comes to spiritual practice, you have to be careful, Just trust your intuition. People always ask me, how do you know if a teacher is authentic? You know. If you're asking that question, then whoever you're asking that question about, you should probably avoid. You always know. And if you don't know, you should ask them, how do I know you're real? And then see how they respond to you. Right? This is your life. So if you're, planning on giving yourself or your faith to another human, you should, don't be afraid of asking really direct questions, right? So, okay, what time is it? Have I bored you? Are you bored? Is it interesting? No, thank you. And I'm not sure if all of you are able to hear me well. I know that some people are coming and English is their second language. And I know for sure if this Dharma talk if I go to a Dharma talk and it's given in Korean, I can hardly hear anything. So thank you for trying to listen to what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And maybe what we can do, if you don't mind, I'd like to wrap up this Dharma talk by actually giving you some really basic instruction. I know a lot of you are already meditators, so please excuse me. I'm sure you've been given your own instructions. But for those of you that haven't had experience with this practice before, the truth is that what I have to say is completely meaningless. Like you're going to forget about it, in 2 hours when you're having, dinner. I mean, that's how life is, right? People talk and it's interesting and then you forget about it. Because words don't mean anything. That's why they're just words. What means something is you doing something. You having your own experience with your own Buddha nature. That means, your infinite mind. Whatever you want to call it. God nature. It doesn't matter what words you use. So, because that is the truth, I'd like to provide you with something useful, since my words, really don't have any use. So if you can leave here tonight having learned how to sit, or at least the basic concept of meditation, which isn't necessarily sitting, then I'll feel happy that I actually gave you something. So do you mind if we do that together for a few minutes? The first time I tried meditating, I thought, oh, what a torturous practice. Who does this? And then my teacher said, yeah, one day you're going to do a 10 hours a day meditation retreat with me. And I said, oh, really? I don't think so. Okay. So close your eyes. Take a deep breath. If you put your hand right around your belly button region, just below the belly button. In Korean, this is called a tanjun. In English, I don't know, belly breathing, right? So inside of your body, right in the center between your front and your back, just about 3 finger widths below the belly button is your center of gravity. And that's where, when you meditate, that's where you should be breathing from. Actually, babies breathe like that naturally. But as we get human and full of anxiety, our breathing rises. So breathing is 50% of meditation is breathing, maybe 90, maybe 99, I don't know. But so breathe from that place. Inhale through the nose. And allow the belly to kind of flop out, especially women. I know we all want to have flat bellies and, the whole supermodel thing, but let the belly be full. Don't worry. So inhale and exhale through the nose. And then as you're standing there, plant your feet. Bring your awareness down to the feet, making contact with the floor. So feel the bottoms of your feet as they touch the floor. And then soften the shoulders and the face, soften the eyes. And just try to relax into the breathing. your eyes and then take your seat again. And again, if the sitting was uncomfortable for you, try to sit higher, or you can even kneel and put something in between your legs. And then for those of you that aren't used to sitting, there are a few postures. One is, this is called the Burmese, which you usually have to sit quite a bit higher for this, but you put one foot in front of the other. They're both touching the ground. Okay, and then it's because you have long legs and you're wearing jeans, so it's hard. If you're going to meditate or sit, wear something loose and comfortable. Another pose is called the quarter lotus, where you just kind of tuck one of the feet in behind a calf. And then I'm not going to teach anything more advanced than that. It's too much, but there's half and full lotus. And then very valid meditation posture. For if you're uncomfortable or you just take up practice, it's no problem. You can take one or both feet and just put it in front of you. And then you use your hands in front of your knee, and that supports your back. The most important thing in meditation is that your body is not distracting you. So use a chair. And then just sit upright. Don't slump back. The spine has to be straight. The energy flows up the spine. If the spine is crimped, you'll just go to sleep or get bored or to start daydreaming or thinking. So the spine has to be erect. That's why Zen, especially in Zen, they're so strict about that, right? You have to sit up straight. So this way, or both feet. And then as you're sitting there, also kneeling is quite a strong position. People who are very long-legged, sometimes kneeling is quite good for them. That's why I think Koreans have the perfect body for meditation. You're born to meditate. It's perfect. Anyway, so as you're sitting there, then the two hands, if you're going to do formal meditation, the left hand goes on top of the right. This is called a mudra. And then the two thumbs touch over the top. It's the universal mudra. And it's just about energy flowing in your body, same theory as acupuncture or anything else. So the spine is straight, and the hands are in this position. The breathing is from the belly, the tanjan. And your lower body is rooted. That's your seat. It's like the roots of a tree. The eyes are cast down about 6 or 8 feet in front of you. And in Zen, we keep our eyes open, just enough to let the light in so that we stay present. And then you place the tongue on the roof of your mouth, just behind the front teeth. It's a very natural position for the tongue. Close your lips and breathe through your nose. And then what to do with the body? Well, you just hold it upright. And it's quite common for it to be uncomfortable in the beginning. So you can even if you decide to take up this practice, do it for 5 minutes a day. Do it for 1 minute a day. But the idea is that you're consistent. And during that time, turn the phones off, lock the door. You really need to say, to your spouse or your kids, this is my time. Don't bother me. And then just do it. Again, even if it's just a very short period of time, you have to start with a very true foundation. You can build on top of that. Doing it erratically and sporadically it takes a long time for that to get you anywhere. Okay, so if your body is upright and you have this deep breathing, very intimate breathing, And this breath, it's our connection to life. So we put our attention on the breathing. And then after you're settled, then very simple initial practice to begin to sharpen our mind, what we could say our awareness. We're working in Zen, we want to sharpen our awareness. So the eyes are open, we can see the space around us. Peripheral vision, you can see everything in the room. Your ears are open, you can hear all the subtle sounds. Someone sniffing, my voice, the feedback from the microphone. Completely, you can hear these things. You can feel your body making contact with the mat underneath you. You can feel the temperature of the room. And then when you kind of have yourself in this state of presence, you feel like okay, I'm present now, I'm full, I'm breathing, I'm here. So once you're here, then start counting your breath. Inhale. And then as you exhale, hana. 3, 4, 5, 6. And then go at your own pace to 20. And then please put your hand up when you've finished. Everybody's done? Okay. And if you've finished, then you can, if you haven't finished, please keep counting while the rest of us distract you. But if you have finished, go ahead and put your legs out and stretch your feet. And then feel free to just stay comfortable. I'd like to wrap this talk up, and you can leave your feet relaxed, whatever's comfortable for you, by saying that, a question that comes up for me, or came up for me when I first started this concentration practice. I wanted in Korean it's called a hwadu, in Japanese koan. In English it's kind of like a question, great question. When I took up Zen, I said, I really want a hwadu, So I would say to my teacher, why don't you give me a hwadu? 5 years he had me doing what I just taught you. 5 long years. I finally, after 1 year, I said, "What is it? Why won't you give me a question? Am I such a my capacity is so low?" And he said, "No. You think that you're always rushing ahead." He said, "If you want to learn how to practice wisdom and compassion, you have to learn how to concentrate." The idea, people come to Buddhism and they, I really want to understand this teaching of compassion and wisdom, and I want to change the world. In America, Buddhism is really involved. A lot of Buddhist centers are involved with things like, dying people, farming, organic farming, the green movement, the alternative movement. And a lot of times what I would question about that is, that's great, but people burn out easily in those lines of work. And if you really want to develop a solid meditation practice, in other words, you want to become someone who's clear and awakened, in a sense you have to do the dirty work, which is learning how to not control, but guide your mind. Learn how to pay attention. Not just on the things that you like, right? Like we can all pay attention to our hobbies. If you give a carpenter a hammer, and give him some beautiful wood, he can lose track of time for 10 hours, even forget about dinner, right? Or when you're with someone you really like, your girlfriend or boyfriend. But with meditation, it's just you. So it can get a little bit boring. I'm just going to sit here and count. Yeah, you have to do that. No, I don't mean you have to do that, but you have to put in that kind of time into what could be perceived as quite a boring thing. But if you really give yourself to the breathing, in other words, you learn how to make a relationship with your breath and with the counting, then actually it can become the most interesting and wonderful and peaceful thing in your life. Right? You can literally be, it was such a transformation for me. The first few years, I didn't want to meditate, ever. I would say to my teacher, I don't think I've chosen the right path. I don't want to meditate. I can't stand it. And he would laugh. Say, that's right, that's great, keep doing it. You have to do it until you can literally learn to love it. And because he would say, what you're telling me is that you don't love yourself. You don't like being alone. You don't know how to be alone. Then, no, he's right. So, but the truth is now, I find myself going, I can't wait to get to the meditation hall, It's become almost the opposite. So, anyway. So that's the truth, is that the meditation, that very bare bones, you're just sitting and breathing and counting, in this case. That's how you build your strength. So I would suggest to you that if you're interested in taking up the practice of Zen, that's how you do it. It's, time tested. Just carve out, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 1 minute a day, and if you can't sit, walk or lay down. Don't go to sleep, make sure that the room isn't too comfortable, But it doesn't matter how you do it, but you have to breathe, and you have to fully give yourself to your breathing. Make a relationship to your breathing, as if you were making a relationship with your own child. Right? It is your child, actually. You're totally responsible for it, and you don't have a choice. As long as you're in this human body, this breath is going to follow you around. So you should learn what to do with it. And actually, it's the key to our spiritual growth is in this breathing, no doubt. Okay, so that's it. I hope I provided something useful to all of you, and I'd like to stop talking, and then if you have any questions or something I said was confusing, please feel free to ask anything. Okay, this will be my last time at Dongguk University for a while, and I want to say thank you for having me.